Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, ladies and gentlemen, and all in between, and welcome to Colony Ship, a post-Earth role-playing game. So this is a new game that's come out. I'm playing a demo at the minute. It's an early access game, and it's a sort of sci-fi RPG. I won't say too much, actually. I'll let the game explain it in itself, but it looks really, really good. So I want to test it out, and I maybe will make a full series out of it if it turns out to be of interest and I enjoy it. I've played it a little bit just to make sure it's working okay and get a feel for the game. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. I'm not going to worry too much about this, as I said, this is only a demo. I'm going to get to the character creation. This is quite an interesting way of doing things, and you'll see that there's a couple of traits or feats, as they're called, we can unlock by having certain stats and skills. The character I'm going to play is going to be quite a kind of religious zealot, as a certain sense. So let's see what we can do first of all. Let's actually play a girl. I don't know why, I prefer role-playing as girls for some reason. Just give you an idea of some of the options that we have. They're a bit limited now, and I'm not sure if we'll get more variants when the game releases, although it probably will. I saw one I liked there. She's quite, yeah, let's go with her. She looks like a kind of a mystic sage. Let's try and make our character as close to her as we can. Is there a better, more bolder option? No. So let's go with that. So as you can see, it's got a few options of stuff we can have. Yeah, that's the one. Zoom in a little bit more and shoot. We can't pick any clothing. We can't give her gloves. And actually, Lilith is a fitting name for a religious character, so let's go with that. Okay, so we've got stats. So, you know, most of these you recognize from games like Fallout and so on. You know what they do. So interactions and party members. So that's obviously, for a character, I want to make her to be quite a vocal character, so it makes sense to have that, and for her to be intelligent and perceptive at least, and dexterity, and maybe constitution. And then let's focus on, I'm assuming 10 is the max, yeah. So she's going to be, I think she's going to be very intelligent and very charismatic, so it makes sense to have that. Maybe dexterity at 7. Constitution is one more, I think, and perception 2. So that seems like quite good. Maybe dexterity actually down 1, and let's make her intelligence 9. And then we can have 6 kind of main skills, which I think we're going to focus on pistol for her fighting weapon. Persuasion makes sense. Streetwise sounds good. Lockpicking, no harm. Computers seems good. So where every skill we tag, we get a 50% faster learning rate. I wonder if we should get critical strike or have a blade. I mean, actually, I'd rather have blade and critical strike. I think would make more sense. Let's focus. What's biotech? So that might come in handy. What's about impersonate? Let's say impersonate. Again, this is only a demo and a trial. You know, if I decide to make a full series, I might end up changing my character completely. But this will give us an idea of what to expect. So we can take one extra feat. So we could do quick fingers, lone wolf, sarge, quite a few here. Oh, we can give it extra points as well. I think one for persuasion and one for our gun, and possibly one for, let's say streetwise. Maybe educated would be good. +1 tag skill and +12% learning rate. So we can get one more. Critical strike seems like a good idea. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm going to jump straight into the story itself. It is the year of our Lord 2754. You will never feel the sun's warmth under a blue sky, never hear the wind in the branches of a tree. and never swim in the ocean, because you had the misfortune to be born on the ship. You've never seen Earth, and you will never see Proxima Centauri either. Your past and future both sacrificed by some dim and nameless ancestor to the greater good of the mission. Starfarer, they called her, a pretty name for a retrofitted interplanetary freighter. She had already been 20 years in service when she was rechristened, and showing every minute of it. No one is certain the ship will actually reach its destination, and nobody much cares, since no one alive now will live to see it. Fatalism is the prevailing philosophy on the shipborne. Make the best life you can, and consign all your what-ifs and might-have-beens to the void. So we can answer a few questions to define our character's beliefs and opinions, and learning more about the ship in itself, so let's do that. The ship was launched by a neo-Christian conglomerate dedicated to establishing a religious colony on a distant world. The original 50,000 passengers, the so-called First Generation, were true believers in the mission. They sacrificed whatever lives they had on Earth and demanded strict obedience to the laws of God and the ship from their children. Unfortunately, the generations that followed lacked their forebears' fervent will to sacrifice. Dissatisfaction led to open revolt against the authorities called a mutiny, and the mutiny metasized into a civil war. While the mutineers dealt a decisive blow to the old order, they did not eradicate it completely. When the fires died and the smoke finally dissipated, three factions emerged from the wreckage of the old order: the Protectors of the Mission, the Brotherhood of Liberty, and the Church of the Elect, each of them promising their own version of the future. So what do we think? Was rebelling against the ship's authority a mistake? Did the mutineers do the right thing? Or were the mutineers all part of God's will originally, and God wanted to topple the old order? Or who cares? So we're not going to go with number 4, but we can decide whether we want to be of the old order, the new order, or somewhere in between. I kind of like number 3. Though they would deny it, the mutineers were fulfilling God's will. I like my character to think that all is God's will no matter what. So I'm going to say that though they would deny it, the mutineers were fulfilling God's will, and when they toppled the old order, all shipborne bent to God's will, just as all events proceed according to his plan. And in fact, I would go on to say, we have to believe in God's plan because that's all he has left us. This suffering must not be for nothing. There must be a greater, higher purpose. Or honour he who was reborn, and you shall be reborn into the new world and await to the end of our long journey, come the dawn. Or faith is always mankind's greatest asset, for faith alone can to provide when reason, physical strength, and even hope has failed. Preserve your faith at all costs. I quite like all of those 3, to be honest. I less like number 1, so it's either going to be number 2 or 3. I think number 2 is linking towards more of a zealot. But number 3 is focused more on someone who has rationale, so I'm going to go with number 3. Faith has always been mankind's greatest asset, for faith alone continues to provide when reason, physical strength, and even hope have failed. Preserve your faith at all costs. The ship suffered extensive damage during the Civil War, but remains operational. The hull was breached in several places, and frantic efforts to avoid a meltdown crippled the main reactor. Radiation increased in places to lethal levels, and several areas remain dangerous to this day. When a small percentage of children in the habitat were first born deformed, they were branded mutants and immediately shunned. The young were abandoned, and those whose defects didn't manifest until later were driven out. With the condition of the fusion reactor degrading to dangerous levels, and the number of volunteers for jobs in areas exposed to radiation remaining few, the mutants negotiated a pact with the Covenant, granting them protection from harassment and violence in exchange for their maintenance of the engines and other vital ship systems. So I've always thought that mutants are an abomination. They prove themselves useful. We're all God's children. In saving this ship, we owe them a debt, or we should get rid of them. Oh no, sorry, we should live with them. Okay, I'm not going to say they're an abomination. Number 2 seems a bit more materialistic, so I'm not going to go with that. Number 3 sounds pretty good, but I don't like the idea of mutations being critical to our survival in a strange world, although it makes sense, but an ostracizing humans based on genetics resist wrong. So I'm going to go with either 3 or 5. 3 seems a lot more like the religious character, so we're all God's children, even those with webbed fingers or deformed faces. Are you so beautiful that you can shun them? The place you call home is known as the Pit, and to some more affectionately as the Free City. Calling the towers of containers rising from the depths of cargo hold a city is a bit of a stretch, and so is the other half of it. With no kind of law or government, freedom mostly means you're free to kill or be killed. On the plus side, housing is cheap and keeping overhead low is a priority when you have nothing. The real city's makeshift metropolises, sprawling across many decks, are called habitats. They offer much better living conditions for those who can afford it, but to live there you have to pick a side among the factions vying for control. Nobody in the pit gives a damn about their struggles, but like Earth before it, nothing in this world is free. Just keep in mind you might get more than you sign up for. As far as I'm concerned, true freedom means being free from laws passed down by our supposed betters. Some kind of rule is necessary, or else we'll descend into anarchy. If freedom means living in an interplanetary shipping container and sleeping with a gun under your pillow, these pit dwellers can keep it. Personal freedom is a luxury the shipborn cannot afford. To serve the state is to serve your brother, to serve your sister, and to serve yourself. Why can't people understand that? I quite like number 4 for this character. Our life is about service, and it should be, and so should everybody's. So, personal freedom is a luxury that shipborn cannot afford. To serve the state is to serve your brother, to serve your sister, and to serve yourself. Why can't people understand that? The ship is en route to Proxima B, an Earth-like planet orbiting Proxima Centauri. After launch, a deep space probe transmitted highly detailed images of the surface, which reveal one minor setback. This very habitable world is already inhabited. Since the voyage is estimated to take close to 400 years, it is possible that by the time the ship arrives, the colonists will encounter a mature civilization corresponding to Earth's late Middle Ages. If that's the case, we could say, what setback? Slaves could be an excellent resource for the colony. We'll make every effort to accommodate the savages. We'll make every effort to live in harmony with them, or we'll be guests on their world. I'm probably going to go with number 3 or 4. Yeah, we must make every effort to live in harmony with the new world's native sons. They're also the children of God, I'm sure, and learn all we can from them. As inevitably happens in dark and challenging times, some people turn to God for reassurance, the promise to an end of pain and suffering, and hunger, or failing an end, at least a purpose. The Church of the Elect rejected the projectors of the mission and the Brotherhood of Liberty as worldly fools distracted by politics and their own egos. Teaching their adherents that they were chosen by God, the Church frames the journey of the ship as a centuries-long test of faith. We all face a series of difficult trials, yes, but with a very definite end. When the ship arrives at her destination, Judgment Day awaits every citizen. The righteous will be welcomed into the promised land of Proxima B, while the unrepentant will be returned to the hell from which we fled, Earth, to suffer for all anxiety. The way I see it, religion is the opium of the people. It doesn't matter if God exists. Fate has been mankind's greatest strength and defining trait, and must preserve it at all costs, or he who was reborn shall... honour who was reborn, and you too shall be reborn into the new world. Let's go with our previous answer, because we stay consistent at least. The Protector's one truth is the mission, and the sole way to ensure the successful completion of the mission is to follow the old ways. The ways of the fathers, forefathers, and founding fathers are together the beam upon which the ship travels to our ultimate destination. The mutiny, which through their steadfast and timely intervention was thankfully aborted, was the ultimate betrayal of the old ways of everyone who had come before. The nullification of every sacrifice and every life dedicated to the mission. Sworn to regain control of the ship, the Protectors will subjugate anyone who threatens the mission. Over the last century they have managed to expand their enclave somewhat, but the Brotherhood is deeply entrenched. To overcome them with violence would result in a massive loss of life, an unfortunate consequence which itself would endanger the mission. So we could say the Protectors are clinging to the long gone past. They should be more flexible. They're right that the mission is more important. Or the Founding Fathers were more wiser than any of our shipborn. I kind of like number 3. It, again, is consistent with our idea about service, that they're right about one thing, that the mission is more important than our petty struggles. If it fails, then all the sacrifice will have been for nothing. The Brotherhood, which was formed to liberate the people from the shackles of the ship authority, their first sally, which the fossils of the old world call mutiny, did not completely achieve this aim. However, the Brotherhood was successful in establishing themselves as a significant power in the new order. Unfortunately, the Brothers' subsequent attempts to complete their emancipation of the enslaved, wherever they may be, ran into an unexpected obstacle. Not only did the people refuse to cooperate in this noble mission, they often violently resisted and sometimes even chose the Protectors or the Church over their best interests. The war goes on but will be fought on different battlefields and with different tactics. A non-military campaign to win over the people through reason and deceit, weakening the enemy from within, is the central pillar of this new strategy. So we could say to survive we must evolve, and the Brotherhood is merely an agent of change. He who fights monsters should look to it and see that himself does not become a monster. The Brotherhood did end the tyranny of the ship authority, giving us a choice in how to live our lives, and they shouldn't try to take away this choice now. Or the best slave is one who thinks he is free. I'd probably go with 2 or 3. I mean, you know, they did a great deed, I guess, by making us a bit more freer, but they're becoming tyrannical themselves a little bit, so... Let's say number 3. The Brotherhood did end the tyranny of the ship authority, give us a choice in how to live our lives. Actually, no, let's go with number 2, it's more philosophical. He who fights monsters should look at it, that he himself does not become a monster. Your beliefs and opinion may change and evolve over the course of the game as you interact with factions, groups, and various individuals. Keep in mind that actions speak more louder than words, and that saying one thing and doing another won't fool people for long. Let's begin our adventure on the ship. I'm already liking this game's background and lore. Its world building is quite good, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out in real life in the game. And we get our first glimpses of Starfarer and the ship. Just get an idea for the controls. So court is in session. We've got the Department of Justice is there for us. It's a little bit laggy. It ran smoother on when I played it first, but what's this? The monitors are crowded with columns of stats and odds for upcoming trials, as well as post-trial evaluations. Shooting efficiency and performance ranking for the prosecution and defense, and a list of payouts. So we've got a gun. Have a little walk around, see what we can find. We've got a general store. Welcome to Quick Fix 3000. Please be advised you hereby waive any rights or claim arising out of or relating to your augmentation and do release and discharge zero downtime and all its affiliates, agents, attorneys, predecessors, successors and assigns for physical and psychological injury that you may suffer as a direct or indirect result of your participation in the formation activity. Thank you for choosing a zero downtime product where your well-being comes first. We're not going to augment our body yet. We've got a person here. Let's have a chat with them. The woman stares blankly as if lost in thought. While her metal-caped fingers move across a keyboard that isn't there, you can see she's jacked in, with a long translucent cable running from her half-shaved head to one of the machines. Finally registering your presence, she unplugs the cable from her head and her eyes come into focus. This is Sarah. Are you a doctor? I've been trained in the healing protocols, if that's what you're asking, the woman says impatiently, waiting for you to get to the point. What's that data jack for? My neural uplink. It's how I run diagnostics. Only the simplest systems have external interfaces. What does this machine do? Regen and implants if you have them. That covers most of what people out of this way need. If you want something fancier, you need a proper medbay. How does regen work? It repairs old tissue and organ damage and pumps you full of drugs to kill pain and inflammation. It takes a couple of hours and sets you back 10 credits. You mentioned implants. The woman sighs and puts the cable down. Back on Earth, they figured out how to make organs better than the ones God and nature gave you. Even after a few hundred years of wear and tear, they're still better than what you have inside you, if your body can handle them. What do you mean? The implants tax the immune system. At a certain point, rejection is unavoidable, leading to mass organ failure and death. Few people can take more than 5, and once this implant is seated, it can't be removed without killing you. She raises her one eyebrow. So I recommend against impulse shopping. Why can't an implant be removed the same way it was put in? For one thing, we don't hold on to your old organs, so there's nothing to put back in. For another, I want you to think about what would happen if I tried pulling out an exospine fused to 18 vertebrae with microfiber optic cables woven into your spinal nerve. I think we'll avoid implants for now. So if anything we can help her with. Well, I do have an errand that needs running. A little fellow by the name of Jimmy Brewster sent word that he was doing something for me. He owes me 500 credits, so it'd be better to be some quality biotech. If it is, bring it here and I'll make it worth your while. If it isn't, I'll deal with Jimmy myself when he shows up. We've got a quest, but unfortunately it's not in the demo, but we might do it later on. Let's see what else we can do. So we've got what looks like a gambler. No bets until the next case goes to trial, the bookie says. His eyes are riveted with a 3-inch high holographic dancer spinning around a narrow vertical beam of light. Which logic would suggest represents a pole? When will that be? The miniature dancer shrugs emphatically and tilts her head to one side, regarding you like a curious bird. Whenever they find another sucker to replace Bosworth, the man replies. Maybe you should give it a shot yourself instead of asking me a million questions. What happened to this Bosworth fella? The dancer jerks back dramatically and pantomimes being shot several times before tumbling over backwards and slowly falling still on the counter. The man nods at his little friend. Pretty much. His shield evaporated, dead battery, right in the middle of a heated conversation. It's funny as long as it doesn't happen to you. Leave. So we're getting a little bit of an idea of what's going on in the world around us. Let's just have a little more nosy around it. It's a bit dark. I'll improve that for the next video if I can. We've got a guy up here. Let's have a chat with him. Chief Justice. You're standing in the shadow of a massive arena, dozens of shipping containers from the walls at the lowest level and provide seating for hundreds of spectators. A gantry crane towers overhead, rigged with several powerful projectors to illumine the space below. You wonder for a moment if real daylight is as bright. You want to file a grievance or apply for a job. The speaker is wearing a gold-striped trench coat that marks him for a man of importance. What is this place? This, my friend, is the cornerstone of justice in our little town, he says with pride. Welcome to the courthouse. I didn't think we had any laws around here. Of course we do, girl. We abide by the Constitution, and much more strictly than those fools in the habitat. Every accused man in the pit is guaranteed to have his day in court and confront his accuser, just like the Constitution says. If said accuser is unable to make an appearance, a judicial officer appointed by the court will take his place. What about the trial? If the defendant slays his accuser or the aforementioned officer, he is cleared of all charges and released. If the defendant falls to the accuser, he is declared guilty, posthumously, of course. A bit like a trial by combat, maybe. That's what you call a trial. All contestants conform to the process of law, he says with a reassuring pat on your shoulder. And here is where our method is superior. It is immune to the corrupting influence of money. Try to find a system like that in the habitat. Ha! You mentioned a job. We're running low on legal representation for the prosecution, he admits with a sad shake of his head. Lost 3 officers last week in a string of challenging cases. I'm not going to give it a try because I'm not a fighter. I can't even seem to get out of that. So let's just say, sure, I'll give it a try. I've no skills for it, but... Excellent, smiles the man. I am the court's Chief Justice, which means I am in charge here. You'll start out as a deputy prosecutor, sorting out minor cases, misdemeanors mostly. If you live, I mean, if you do well, you'll be promoted and get to prosecute more interesting cases. Who knows, you might even make judge one day. Ready for your first case? Deputy prosecutor. Back on Earth, you would be a probationary deputy district attorney, but seeing as there are no districts here, and not any attorneys neither, deputy prosecutor will do. Ready for your first case? Give me a few hours, I don't want to get into a gunfight, I don't have the skills for it. Probably die straight away. Let's see what else we can have a look around. We can't go into the court. We can zoom out a little bit more. And we can head into here. We seem to be in sort of a market area. Here's this guy. Welcome to Hit and Kill, says the storekeeper, giving you a quick appraising look. We carry high-end merchandise for the discerning customer like you, he adds after a pause. I don't want to buy anything at the minute. Jobs must own a gun. And this question isn't available in the demo either, but we'll read it anyway. You know how to handle firearms? The proprietor asked, apparently not a man for pleasantries. I know how to solve problems, if that's what you're asking. I don't need a gun to do that. Excellent, he replies without any enthusiasm. You're hired. Hired for what? What do you think someone hires a gun hand? Either because he expects trouble or is planning to stir someone up. Pay is 100 credits on completion, nothing up front. Are we in the business or aren't we? Yes, we are. Alright, your proprietor says approvingly. The client is a fella by the name of Trevor Chauncey, known around these parts as Chance. He's got a meet set up with the Granger boys to sell some kind of doohickey, and he's worried things might get dicey. If they do, you get to stand between him and a hail of bullets. Why is he worried? Probably trying to get swift and sell them some junk gussied up like valuable tech. If I'm right and they see through his bullshit, he'll have a problem on his hands, and since he's the client, his problems are your problems. We good? Yes. You can find Chance in his office, which doubles as the bar. Tell him Earl sent you. We've got purple water. The courthouse is back that way, it says. There's somebody else. We've got Main Street down here. Where do you think you're going? What's Main Street? Well, if Camp Town is anything goes kind of place, Main Street is a place where nothing goes without Jones Redford say so, and since he doesn't want the riffraff bothering eye rollers, the gate's closed. What can you tell me about Redford? Well, everyone knows, shrugs the guard. He set up a camp here 20 years ago or so, back when he was still making runs into what's left of the mission control. The camp grew and Redford grew with it. He doesn't call himself a mayor, but he doesn't have to. Everyone knows what he is, except maybe Braxton. Who is Braxton? A hired gun. A few years ago, the Brotherhood got the notion we wouldn't put up much of a fight if they were to come free us from our chains, so Jonas hired Braxton and his regulators to dissuade them. Braxton lost half his men dissuading the Brotherhood until they got the message, which gave him a hero status and all kinds of ideas. Why be the mayor's guard dog on a tight leash when you can be the mayor? Braxton fought the Brotherhood and won. Ha! Braxton caught the Brotherhood's forces by surprise and delayed them long enough for the Protectors to show up. That's what he was hired to do, to buy us time. For all their flaws, the Protectors won't let the Brotherhood grab the pit without a fight, and vice versa, of course. As long as they're busy fighting each other, the pit will remain free. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think of the game. I may go and do a series. I quite like the idea of this game and its backstory and lore. I'd like to get to know more about it, so maybe we'll see a series of it in the future. So I'll see you soon in the next video. Take care and have a nice day.